The Iron Curtain story begins in 1945 with the end of World War II and the defeat of the Nazi Party in Germany. After the war, Soviet soldiers stayed in the countries they had freed from Nazi rule as they pushed the German line from the USSR to Germany. The Baltic nations were absorbed into the USSR and communist governments were installed in many Eastern European nations. Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Yugoslavia, Hungary, and Poland. The Soviets also had control in East Germany and Eastern Austria. This lasted until 1954. The USSR supported a communist takeover of the government in Czechoslovakia in 1948, as the Soviets made a barrier between the USSR and Western Europe. On March 5, 1946, Winston Churchill traveled to Fulton, Missouri, to give a speech warning the Western powers about the threat that the Soviet Union posed.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Behind that line lie all the capitals of the ancient states of Central and Eastern Europe. Warsaw, Berlin, Prague, Budapest. All these famous cities and the populations around them lie in what I must call the Soviet sphere.
Trade between the two blocs stopped as Europe became divided between the spheres of influence of the democratic West and communist Soviets of the East. The USSR put barbed wire fences, mines, and soldiers on the borders of communist nations by the end of the 1950s to prevent people from fleeing to the West. A priority of the Western nations was to prevent communism and its influences from spreading across the Iron Curtain, especially in France and Italy. The Iron Curtain led to the formation of NATO and the Warsaw Pact, and the U.S. intervention in Turkey and Greece. Albania was the only nation to end cooperation with the Soviets, instead focusing on relations with China, and Yugoslavia had poor relations with the USSR. The symbol of the Iron Curtain was the Berlin Wall, built in the early 1960s. The Berlin Wall and Iron Curtain came tumbling down once the Soviet Union dissolved and communist governments fell in Eastern Europe in the early 1990s. Today, there is still a sense of the Iron Curtain, as the former communist nations are weaker economically and politically. In addition, many of the Eastern nations have joined the European Union, symbolizing the change towards pro-West feelings and against Russia. The Iron Curtain was both a metaphorical and often physical presence dividing and isolating the communist, Soviet-influenced Eastern Europe from the capitalistic West.